In this episode, you'll hear the story of Calum Heath. He's a freelance illustrator based in London, and although he's worked on many different things, he's done a book, a music video, he's done some visual scribing and some murals in London. We'll be mostly talking about his experience in the editorial industry. He's done several pieces for highly acclaimed publications, such as the New Yorker and the Guardian. And so we'll be talking about that, and we'll learn also about the importance of understanding what works for you and then doing it consistently. If you're interested, you'll be able to find all of these episodes, timestamps, and resources, as well as my free guide to full-time freelancing in the description below. Let's begin. All right, Calum, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
In this conversation, we won't be talking in depth regarding your motivation and philosophical beliefs behind what you do, but I'd like you to start by just giving us a quick introduction to who you are and what your current situation as an illustrator looks like.
Okay. Who I am. I originally, I guess not right now, but originally I'm London-based freelance illustrator. And my life right now isn't necessarily London-based because I'm moving around the place on my canal boat, which is a whole subject in itself that we should go into. But before I was moving around on my canal boat, I was based out of East London. And I've been freelancing for about 5 years. Yeah, so not that long in terms of some things, but it's going well so far. So yeah.
So what have you been working on? What are we could say, highlights of your career?
I'd say the flow of my career so far has just been really focused around editorial illustration. So I guess the highlights within that have been pieces that, like in the New Yorker and the Guardian and some of the highly acclaimed publications. And then outside of editorial, I'd say one particular highlight was working on a mural in London, in Shoreditch, and just kind of other interesting jobs that have popped up around that. But yeah, it's been quite a consistent flow of editorial work and then other projects around that, really.
Okay, fantastic. So maybe let's jump into the story and we'll go and see each of those things a bit in more detail in a second. Yeah. But let's start with in the beginning. Let's start with your educational background, your first encounter with illustration,
Yeah, so I mean, right back in the beginning, I actually grew up in Scotland, but then my family moved down to Watford when I was 10. So kind of had my adolescent teenage years in Watford. And I was always my whole family is quite artistic. So we were always encouraged to draw. I've got quite a big family, 3 brothers and a sister. We were always kind of drawing. That was always something that was kind of around in my family. Like my mum would get out the paper and we'd all be drawing and stuff. And especially that when you're a kid, you just don't, like a lot of people know, you don't care about, you just love it, don't you? I was obsessed with drawing footballers and it was great. But then I went off on a bit of, I was basically just football obsessed as a teenager. So I was that was my real thing that I just loved. But I always kind of kept up art and drawing on the side of that. But it didn't really become a real thing for me until I maybe hit about 17. When I left school, I kind of started to realize this was something that I could actually take forward. And then when I really discovered illustration, I'd say it would be on my foundation course I did in London. At the Whitechapel, just next to Whitechapel. That's when I kind of discovered what illustration kind of was. My only exposure to illustration as a kid was sort of the Quentin Blake type narrative stuff that that's what sticks in your mind. but I didn't really have any awareness of really what it was until I got older, and I discovered it like it was a whole, yeah, that it's a whole thing in itself, and then it's kind of gone from there. And I went to uni and all that stuff, and it's kind of grown out of that.
Mhm. So how has the university experience been? Do you think has it been an important part of
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you are right now?
yeah. Yeah, massive. Like I went to Falmouth in Cornwall. It's like the most southern uni in the UK, and to do illustration down there. And going into it, I didn't know. All I knew was that there were certain artists that I loved, and I loved like drawing, like pen and ink drawing kind of thing. And I had my own thing going on, but it was at uni that I'd really discovered what illustration was all about, kind of thing. Yeah, it was incredible. Like the experience of being down there and all the different people that I met, and especially like my girlfriend who I've been with for 7 years now. We met on the course, and yeah, it was just completely like laid the foundation for everything that I have come to understand as illustration now. Um, Having said that, that's just to me personally. I think there's a lot of people out there that have got the context of illustration from somewhere else. They don't have to go to uni, but just in my experience, it gave me that context of what the industry was and how I could potentially go out and work as an illustrator.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so, in practice, well, first of all, did you manage to develop your own style in during the university years?
Yeah.
You have,
Y-
okay.
Yeah, sort of. But the weird thing is like, and I guess a lot of people would say the same thing. When I look back at the thing at uni, I obviously don't particularly rate it now. Um, but at the time, I thought like, "God, this is amazing." I've always had a kind of strange sense of like self belief about what I'm doing, which I hope doesn't go because I think it's good. But yeah, at the time, I remember thinking, "Oh, I love what I'm doing," and then obviously you look back now, you think actually there was a lot of it was kind of weak in a way. And I think actually when I left Falmouth, the commercial work I was doing at the time, I also look back on and think, yeah, I wasn't quite ready. I only actually feel like I've really established a style, like a really strong style, in the last like 2 years.
Okay.
It's felt like I didn't feel like I left uni as like a ready-made illustrator.
Okay, let's take a step back.
Yeah.
So how did you go from university to actually working in the illustration field?
Yeah, so I think a key thing in all of this is my older brother is a freelancer who works in film, and like my brother's got this crazy work ethic. Like he's honestly like he just works so hard, like much harder than me, and much harder than pretty much most people I've met. But having him there as like a example of what it takes to to kind of not to get somewhere, but just to get your career going, I think was really important for me because I saw that just being good at what you do, just being a good drawer, for example, or even really good illustrator, that's no one cares about that. It's not really about how good you are. It's about how hard you're willing to kind of work to get the work, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. It's
Total sense. Yeah.
you could be incredible, but not willing to put yourself out there, or you could be rubbish but really willing to put yourself out there. But the rubbish person is going to get the career because they're persistent enough, and that was a key thing for me. So kind of seeing him and how persistent he is with his work was like an example. So as uni was starting to end, I started to think, right, how am I going to get work and stuff? And I basically just started finding potential clients and finding emails, and just started targeting my work. And I think an important part of that as well is that I often speak to people, I have spoken to people that feel that they're not ready, kind of thing. I want to develop, like they want to perfect what they're doing. And I don't personally believe in that. I think you're constantly evolving. You need to just get your stuff out there and try and get
Mhm.
the ball rolling with people because, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you went out, you sent some emails. Did you already know what you wanted to do, or did
Yeah.
you have a bunch of things you wanted to do, or did you know I want to do
No, that's a great
editorial?
point. Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. I think when I was at uni, I didn't. I just was making all my own stuff, like my own stories and books and illustrations about just stuff that's in my head, just completely personal. It was kind of, I guess, more fine art than what you'd call illustration. Um, but then, as the course was coming to an end, I was thinking, right, how am I going to make money out of this? Because
Mm,
although, like, I think it was cool stuff, you're basically just heading down the direction of like, I'm going to have to get some big name in being an artist or not, or I'm not going to make money. So I really wanted to make money out of it. I think that's the important factor. And, not everyone wants to do that. But for me personally, I was like, I want to make
mm,
money out of this. And so I kind of thought, well, how could I actually develop that in the immediate future? So editorial illustration was like a first stop for me. I thought if I can get really good at this, I can get paid work and I can get the ball sort of rolling. So that's why I honed in on that. I've kind of just had like a gradual developing like passion and love for editorial illustration as I've kind of got into it.
mm.
I mean, cynically, I guess I kind of went into it because I saw the job opportunity there. I could put my style and my skill into that and get work out of it.
Yeah.
As it's gone on, I've kind of come to appreciate more of what makes great editorial work.
Yeah,
But it wasn't.
well, it's often like that, isn't it? That
Yeah,
you
yeah,
start and then you develop your passion by doing the thing rather than waiting for the passion to come
yeah,
to you.
yeah. I think that's quite right. Actually, I haven't really thought about it until saying like literally this conversation now. But yeah, I think you're right. I think as you're developing in something, you're discovering new things about it, and it's exciting. And yeah, but as I say, when I started, it was like I knew that my style was good or was commercially viable, and it was just like, where can I put it, or how can I make money out of it? And that was like the place
Did you
I was.
know it just by blind belief in yourself, or did you have
uh,
some feedback of people who told
I
you?
think I think people. No, I think it's a bit of both. I think like people have always been very encouraging. I think like key thing as well. Like I'm a very lucky person because I've got a very supportive and loving family around me, which is like a blessing. Do you know what I mean? Like that's you can't factor for that, but so I think that's a massive thing for my inner belief. But it's also people, yeah, encouraging you and tutors. I had some great tutors that were encouraging, and you need that. You need people around you that are going, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah,
You can do it.
absolutely.
You're good enough to do it. So
And
yeah, I
so,
think it's a
how
bit
did
of
you go about it? So, did you know? Did you already know? Did you have some kind of publishers that you, sorry, editorial, yeah,
no,
that
no,
you
no,
wanted
yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
to work with, or how did you go about it?
I literally, it was for me. It was obviously I wanted to work for the big clients, the kind of well-known clients, just because it looks good on you. But it was really just like trying to like get in touch with as many people as I can that are kind of related to companies that commission illustration.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the good thing about Falmouth is they kind of they painted a picture of the industry for you that made it more clear. So like I was trying to target art directors, people that would be commissioning. And I think if I didn't have that like image in my mind of how the industry was, I think that it'd be much harder. Like if I was coming in from the outside and not knowing who to contact, I think is must be a struggle. But for me, I just really honed in on art directors. Like that's the role of person that I need to get my work in front of.
So, have you
Uh,
been taught that in school? Have you been told
yeah,
art
yeah, I'd say
directors
so.
do want this kind of thing? So, this is what you need to do in order to.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah, no, definitely. That was something that was kind of taught to us. Yeah, and it's critical, really.
Hmm.
Um, and I think around that, I mean, there's the important thing with the emailing and trying to get in touch with people is that, like, firstly, most people just don't care. and about you, and that's fine. And also, like 70-80% of those people that you're emailing won't you won't be relevant for them, and they'll reject you. But that's also fine. And it's more like it's like the more the merrier. Do you know what I mean? The more
Yeah,
people you get in
numbers
touch
game.
with them, it's a
Yeah.
number exactly. It's a numbers game, and like if you're rather than because I know some people can be quite selective, like, oh, this person isn't right. This company doesn't. My work won't fit here. My work won't fit there. But it's always worth just getting your stuff in front of as many people as you can, because you just don't know who they'll pass your work on to, or it's just do as much as you can of it, basically, and
Hmm.
don't feel too precious about whether your work fits into their style or not.
Yeah.
Um,
And so since we're talking about it, what are your biggest tips about working with art directors? What would you say are the most important things?
I think trusting. I think if you're going to work for someone, you should respect that you're in control as the illustrator, but you're kind of working for them. And I think when I first started working commercially, well, you'll know as well, Tom. When you get feedback from like a client, and it really it can be really like annoying and hurtful, and you're like, because you're
Yeah.
all
I'm the
personally
prophet. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. But I've learned that as time's gone on, and I've had more experiences to just respect the client as they are your client, and like listen to them and try and work your way to something that they want, because it's about them just as much as it's about you, and not to get too emotionally invested, and just try and be professional, and just be like also just yeah. And I think alongside that is just trying to be as like nice and easy to work with as you can be. Um,
Yeah, and
it
so
sounds
about that, how about the getting chosen bit? What are your pieces of advice for that?
what do you mean for how to stick out?
Yeah, so you've reached the art director you'd like to work with. What do they need to see for them to actually say this is the yeah, I'm going with this person, with this
Yeah, I
artist?
don't. I think that's so dependent on who the artist or what the work is. I
Hmm.
don't think you can. I'm not sure. All you can do is just reinforce who you are with art directors. So, like, in a few months' time, I'll send so and so another message and say, "Oh, I've been doing this since we were last in touch." I think an important thing, I don't think you can't force them to choose you, obviously,
Yeah.
but I think it's just about being in people's minds as much as you can. Um, but I think an important thing which I do for me is having a list of all the people that have got back to you. So all the people you're emailing, the people that get back to you that kind of are interested in you, just make a note of who they are and what they do and kind of what they said. And like this is very like structured, but this is basically me. And like then you have a note of when they were in touch with you. It's like a kind of like an Excel spreadsheet kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And it just
Absolutely.
means that like you can go back to that when you're having your quiet moments. You can go back to that spreadsheet and see, well, I haven't spoke to them for a while. Maybe I should just check in with them. It's a place where you can keep on top of all that stuff, because if you've got it all just floating around, you might have a great conversation with an art director that you like really want to work for, and then you just sort of you just forget, and time moves forward and they forget. But if you kind of have a spreadsheet or something where you can refer back to it and you can see, I think that's quite important. Well, it has been for me, yeah, because yeah, that makes sense.
So is that something that you do consistently? Do you
Yeah,
do that even when you are completely, booked with work?
yeah, yeah. Well, obviously, when like this last few years, really, I haven't done a lot of promotional stuff, which I guess is a good thing. But it's good and bad. But it's because I've been busy. But so it's mainly so I wouldn't really keep in touch with art directors during that time. I mean, some people would, but I haven't really been in that mindset. It's more when you're really pushing out there to get more commissions that I really force that as a way of working. But you've kind of made me think maybe I should just check in with a few people and make sure they
You
remember
never
who
know.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you disappear for 2 years and then go back, and they're like, who's
Who
this
is
guy?
this bloke? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So okay, so you reached to these art directors. You've shotgun approach as many as you could, and what percentage would you say of those people you have contacted got back to you?
So yeah, I reckon. So what I was doing, like when I first graduated, was I had like a target. So like every day, my daily work, because I wasn't obviously, I had like the odd commission here and there, which was obviously keeping the belief going. But there was obviously massive like gaps of not
Did that come
like
from
money.
your immediate network, or
Uh, no, yeah, no, that came from they just came through emailing, and it was like I remember the first one I did was creative review, um, and then I had like a few. I had like a few for Vice that I'd emailed them, and then they gave me some jobs, and it was like so that was kind of keeping me going. Like, oh, this is happening. Like this can happen. But I was going to say like the my daily routine when I wasn't working on something would be like, right, I'm going to try and send 30 emails like to various people. It was like it was more like you said earlier, it's a numbers game. It was like I'm going to just even if they're people that like aren't really relevant, I'm just going to get in touch with 30 people, and then the chances are like some of those
something
people will
is
get
going to come
back.
up? Yeah,
Something's
yeah,
going to happen, yeah, because it's and also it was a way of not being down if stuff didn't happen because loads of like weeks went by where you'd be sending 30 emails every day and then like no one's getting back to you and but it's for me it was like a box ticking exercise. If I did the 30 emails then like and no one gets back to me then sod it, like that's just I've tried, do you know what I mean?
yeah. I love
I
it.
didn't want to. I didn't want to feel like I hadn't tried. But I think if you're hitting that target of I'm going to get in touch with that many people, no one's getting back to me. Well, I've done my bit. Do you know what I mean? I've tried to do it. Um, but I'd say in terms of how many people get back to me, I swear it's probably only about 5 to 10%. I swear it's not a lot.
Hmm.
Uh, and I don't feel upset by that. Like, it's just like you've got to just keep going with these things.
Yeah, I think your mindset is a big big part of why you are where you are right now. Just keep going, whether it's
Yeah.
working or not. Just trusting the process. If you keep doing it, at some point something is going to happen. So
Yeah,
that's
it's kind of trying to detach. I mean, yeah, it's trying to detach emotionally too much from what's going on. I mean, obviously, I can appreciate I've had luck as well, and things have gone my way. So it's easy now to feel like that's the answer because some people might do 30 emails a day and then they don't get somewhere out of it. But I think the important thing is if you find that you're promoting yourself like going really intense and it's not happening for you, you can walk away from whatever that thing is that you want to do and do something else and know that you've given it a good go. Because there's been loads of other things in my life so far, like like I mentioned earlier, like football. Like I really wanted to be a footballer for a period, like a lot of young guys, and I worked hard at that, and I wasn't good enough. But it was that feeling of like, a feeling of giving something your best, which I think you leave something without and regrets because you know you've tried to do it. And I knew with the illustration thing, if I did all those things and after years time it wasn't happening, then I tried it. Do you know what I mean? And that was important to me. I didn't want to feel like I hadn't tried. Um, yeah.
that's great. And so you started having your first freelancing jobs like that. You got in touch with as many people you were interested in as possible. And then
Yeah.
where did you go from there? So
Yeah.
this
So
was still university years, right?
this was kind of the end of uni and the kind of summer transitioning into the next year, just like life kind of thing. Um, but I'd say, I mean, it's not like really exciting, but that's kind of just been the structure of my kind of career or like my life. And it's been about like um, being busy. And then when you're not busy, getting back, it's like a rotation. When you're not busy, you're getting back to promoting yourself.
Mm.
And then but I found obviously naturally that my relationship with certain art directors has grown throughout the years, so that it changes the dynamic. Then when you establish like a sort of not friendships, but like like you worked with people for a while, they know you quite well, and so that obviously starts to change the nature of how you are with art directors, and obviously the feeling is so different now than what it was when I first graduated. Like the anxiety and the stress that I felt towards everything. Now I think now I'm much more relaxed about things, which might be a detriment. That might not be a good thing, but I couldn't keep up the level of pressure that I was putting myself under.
I'd say it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, I would say that that intense period that was in a really important period, but it's not been like that constant. It's not like every day, and that's why I go back to my brother. My brother is like that every day, but for me, it was like it was like a period in my life where I really needed to push something, and now I'm kind of like comfortable with how things are. Well, how things have been so far. Yeah, I'm sure they'll change. Everything changes.
Yeah, I mean, as long as your efforts match the goals that you have,
Yeah,
then it's
yeah.
all good. There, you don't really need to get anywhere that you don't want to, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, like, I mean, this is a whole other subject, but I think as like my goal was to kind of work as an illustrator, and when you kind of achieve that, or well, now I'm working as an illustrator, it starts to throw up more questions about what you want to do within that field or what you want to do outside that. And I haven't really yet to establish other real big sort of targets or goals myself, and I think that would be a good thing for me. Um, Over the next few years to kind of set myself the next one. Um, but having said that, I do still like get a lot of love and enjoyment out of what I'm doing. So yeah, it's exactly like you say. It's all about asking yourself where you want to be and what you want to be doing.
Mhm. And so, has it mostly been small, multiple small projects with different people, or have you had like a short list of people who gave you the most jobs?
I think at the beginning it was like loads of little jobs, and I think as time's gone on, I've probably like in the last few years, I've probably only like worked for maybe like no, actually no, that's not true. But I'd say on a regular basis, I probably only work for about four different. We call them companies, but like online magazines or all these different things. I'm not sure what you'd call them, but um, I probably only worked for about four or five, like on a really maybe four on a really consistent basis over the last few years. And I've do like the odd job here and there for other newspapers and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the important thing within my uh, like the illustration industry is that I don't have an agent, for example, um, and I've never been like looking for an agent. But I think the key thing for by having an agent is it can open up a whole new part of the illustration world of like bigger commissions and stuff like that.
Why
Um,
have you never looked for it?
I like being in control of what I'm doing. I don't feel ready to hand over my business to somebody else. I don't really trust somebody else that they are kind of to have my best interest. Um, I just feel more comfortable dealing with it myself, and I'm also not particularly driven by the idea of doing advertising because I'm more driven towards doing personal projects than I am advertising. So yeah, I guess I'm quite happy with the sort of thing I'm doing. Albeit quite small work, I'm quite happy with that
Hmm.
so far. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and I
yeah,
think my view on agents, definitely I agree with what you are saying, that it's your business. Nobody is going to care about it more than you do.
yeah,
And usually people have, their own um, well-being in mind. So
yeah,
it's good to have the knowledge that allows you to actually know what's going on in your business and have control. But
yeah,
So my view on agents is just another channel. It's, you've got your channels, you've got your structure, you understand how things work, and if you want, you can have that additional channel that brings you
Yeah,
things, but
yeah,
in no way that should be your only option. That's where it's problematic.
yeah, yeah. And have you had an agent before, Tom?
No, I haven't. No, I've never
But is
worked
it
with one.
something you'd be interested in with your work? Would you be interested in that?
Um, so uh, agents are very illustration specific, really.
Mm, mm.
Um, since I've previously worked in web design and development,
Yeah,
um, there is
it's
no
maybe not
such.
relevant to that. Okay, right, it's not a thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, I'm like open to the fact that things will like my life will change, and maybe that'll be something that I'll need or want in the future.
Mm,
Um, and there's obviously loads of examples where it's really successful, marriages between illustrators and agents, but it just hasn't felt right to me so far. I'm very like aware of being caught in the spider web of like illustration agencies.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe things are changing with agencies as well.
Yeah,
If before um, agents were seen more as the gatekeepers. Well, they had the important network of big clients, and you could only get to those clients through them. Right
yeah.
now, it's much more leveled the field, and
That's
so
interesting. Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think the internet is like an equalizer for people because
yeah.
I can just be well. Like at the moment, I'm based like miles out of London. I'm just emailing people, and you no longer rely on maybe certain people as much. But no, I think going back to what you're saying, I agree. It's probably prior to the internet, it's probably a very different experience where you really needed, like you said, a gatekeeper. You needed someone that was gonna like take you into the industry. So we're lucky to like live in this age. I think in many ways of yeah of the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just accepting that things have changed. I'm sure the previous way things worked
Mm.
was great as well in its ways, but it's just acknowledging how things are right now,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I feel like your approach works very well with how things are right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'd say so, and yeah, yeah,
Okay, so going back to the story, you so we've kind of went around the university years and
yeah,
the period right after that.
yeah.
How does the story goes? How did you get from there to where you are now?
Um, so I think, well, to be honest with you, I don't think so. I don't think where I am now is that different to where I was when I first graduated. I just think I'm much more like I guess I've established myself more with certain clients, and I'm much more developed in what I do, and I'm much better at what I do. But it's not necessarily if you're going to draw it as a graph, it's not like it's not been some meteoric thing. I'd say I got to working as a professional illustrator, and it's just been like a consistent flow of work that I've been doing.
Mm,
I think the important thing to talk about in this sense is the way like I live as a freelancer because like I'm not sure we mentioned on the actual recording, but like I live in a narrowboat and I now work from there. Um, and that was definitely a big thing for me as like going into freelancing that it could took the pressure away from like normal life like rents and mortgages and all these sort of things because we cruise in London and like London, you do this thing, and have you obviously been to London at some point in time?
yeah, yeah,
Um, like there's a huge canal network there, and it's a massive community of people doing it. And so we've lived on the water for like 4 years, I think now, 4 years. Like, and it's just been because you don't have to pay this huge like London rents. It takes the pressure away from the kind of like I've got to like get that job. I've got to get that job. It just makes life more affordable and manageable. But I think that that's been one of the important factors in my like life for like survival and freelancing. It's taken that pressure away.
About
Um,
that, about this thing of taking pressure away, because it's something that I've already talked about in a previous episode. Um, have you, and also about taking different kind of jobs, have you been with the whole pressure not being
yeah.
as much there anymore? Have you been kind of more? Have you been more choosy with the kind of jobs that
Uh,
you have taken, or is your approach just saying yes to everything that comes your way?
uh, no, I don't. No, I don't. I don't think I have been like really selective about what I've done. I mean, to be honest, I like being given different kinds of subjects. So, I mean, unless there's something that comes in that I just think, oh, that is just not that I'm not going to be right for that. But on the whole, I find, especially within editorial, you'll get thrown a subject, and you always think, "Oh, I can do that." Do you know, like I could work with that subject. Um, the only things that I would have turned away is people asking me to do things that I just really know that is not going to suit me. It's just going to be a grind, or like the money's not worth it, and that kind of thing. Um, but no, I've worked like really hard over the last 4 or 5 years and really consistently. I definitely haven't found that living a like more like alternative uh, lifestyle has made me like take my foot off the gas. Um, is it, I think what it is knowing is feeling more in control. That I'm not like desperately scrambling to pay rent all the time. I'm really lucky to be able to live this way. Um, yeah, so I don't know. Did that answer your question? I feel like I went off on one a bit there.
No, 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 you did. And also,
Mm.
okay, so you've been living, you said, for 4 years, right, on the
Yeah,
roads.
yeah.
Um, and does that? How long ago did you start freelancing?
Well, I started freelancing in 2017, so 18, 19. So it's the same amount of time. Yeah,
About, yeah.
4 years, isn't it? I think I might have said a freelancer for 5 years. Yeah, it's 4 years. Yeah, is
And
that right? Maths. Maths is about. I'm just a bit like we can correct this after. We can edit
well,
this back in.
yeah, exactly. Will I re-record your voice?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
14 years.
yeah, yeah.
And
Um,
okay, so at what point did you were you able to make a living out of it? How from what point has it been sustainable?
uh, I'd say like by the end of 2017, I was feeling pretty good, and like financially, and I think uh, the important thing for people to know that like because I know there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't want to live on a boat or live like people want to like live in a nice flat or something and
Mm.
because a boating is a certain lifestyle that basically doesn't work for everyone. But like I could financially, I could have rented, I could have done other things like with the money that I've made through illustration. So it's not a case of like I don't want people to out there that want to be illustrators feel like oh I'm gonna have to like live some alternative lifestyle in order to be an illustrator. Like, no, you can make enough money to do other things. It's just we like my girlfriend's a freelancer as well. We both got the boat before we really launched our like kind of careers. So it was more of like how are we gonna have the time? It's about creating time to be able to do your own thing, you know.
Mhm.
Mm. Yeah,
Can we zoom in a bit into the
yeah,
financial aspect?
yeah, absolutely.
How much were you paid for those initial gigs, and how has your have you increased? Imagine your rates throughout time. What happened?
Yeah, like I'd say the average, I find like a good editorial job is maybe like 400 or 500 pounds. I'm talking British money. Um, and then, but the lower end of that, like at the beginning, I did jobs for Vice that were maybe paid like 100 quid, 150 pounds, which I consider quite low. But I haven't. I think, especially in the editorial field, often they come at you with like a budget. They know already what it's worth to them, and you just have to decide whether you're okay with that or not. But I think as time's gone on, especially I've become more confident about what I'm worth financially as the years. At the beginning, it was very much like, yeah, you just take it, like take whatever you whatever comes your way. But I'd say in the last few years, like me and my girlfriend, we both discuss this a lot. It's about like really like basically people aren't going to pay you well if you don't like demand that in yourself. Like if you know you're worth a certain amount, you know you need to kind of stand by that and be strong about that. But I think that only comes with time and experience. And
how have you gone about defining that amount for yourself?
Well, I think there's another side of what I do. So I do illustration and I do visual scribing as well. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I don't know what that is.
It's like it's illustration as well, but you go to I work through a company, like freelance for a company doing it, called Scribing, and you basically go to meetings and conferences and you visualize, you make visual notes, like illustrated notes of what people are saying. So that, but through them, I think watching the way they finance themselves as a company and what they, because we get paid through them and it works like that. I think seeing the way they set the rates kind of made me feel like I'm not valuing myself enough. Like I need to be charging more for what I do. Obviously, this runs in parallel with editorial, which, like I say, they don't ask you what you want; they just tell you what it is.
This is what we've got.
Yeah, exactly. But I think when people, so to give you like an idea, like at the moment, I'm saying that my day rate is 250, like £250, and that's what I'm sticking with because I think I just believe that's what my time is worth. But I do think you have to be flexible as well. I don't think well, you don't have to be flexible, but like if you want, not everyone's going to fit into that, are they? Like some people are just not going to have that money, and you need to weigh up whether it's worth you doing the job or not. I mean, because there's a lot of great work out there for people that don't have the money, but it's going to be amazing for your portfolio, or just for your development.
Have you been doing work for free as well?
Not really. I've done a few things. I mean, I do work. I do kind of collaborations with friends and certain things. It's not really, no, but that's not really, you wouldn't even consider that like work. No, I mean, no, not really. And I try to avoid it if I can, because if you're saying to someone, oh, that you will work for free, I just think it undervalues the craft. It's like, you don't get someone around doing your plumbing and say, oh, would you do us a freebie? It just doesn't, I don't really believe in that, but I think you have to judge it in your own circumstance, whoever you are and what the job is. But if someone's coming to you saying, oh, we want you to do this illustration, but we've got no money, it's just like, well, then they shouldn't be commissioning, they should be, then they're not valuing you, do you know what I mean? And you need to work out what that means to you. But no, I haven't really done free work. I'm trying to think of anything, especially not now. Maybe right at the beginning to get your name out there.
Yeah. So would you? What's your view about it? Would you?
Would I do it?
No. Would you advise? In which kind of situations would you advise people to do?
I think you need to judge it yourself, and I mean, I especially think if you're like coming out of university and you really want to get your work connected to companies and brands or whatever it is, I think you need to obviously, in your own circumstance, decide whether that's right for you. But I think the important thing to bear in mind is if someone's saying to you, "Will you do it for free?" They're probably not worth your time in the long run because they don't value you. Do you know what I mean? They're not. They're wanting you to do it for free, and all that stuff about exposure that a lot of people do is like it's just like all freelancers know it's just a load of crap. Do you know what I mean? That's never. No one's ever got anywhere off the back of free work for some, like, because people that are serious, they'll be serious and they'll pay you, you know. But I do think that it just takes a bit. Well, for me personally, it's taken time to develop the confidence to say what I want. I mean, and that's natural, you know. I
Mm.
think people should just go with the whole experience of the whole thing and then decide for themselves what it's worth to them.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there are exceptions about the, every time you talk about exposure, clearly sounds a bit like a meme, but it,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do think there is a place and time for that.
yeah,
And so, for example, if it's a very public um, kind of work, if it's going
yeah.
to be very in front of a lot of people,
Mm,
for a circus, for example, you're illustrating a circus, then it might, if you're in the beginning and you're looking for exposure, it might make sense to
yeah,
build your skills, your portfolio, and have that nice exposure as well.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I do agree. It's a tricky thing. It's most of the times it's just bullshit, and then
Well, I think, I mean, you've made me think as well. There's loads of amazing um, people and charities and companies that are trying to do good things and they just don't have the money. And that's where I say you people should just judge it for themselves. You know, I mean, if there's something that came along that I thought was just like absolutely like I could help those people, and obviously they're not going to pay me a proper wage, but a proper rate, then I think you should judge it yourself because there's not one blanket rule for these things, is there? There's so many people out there that are trying to do things, and I do think if you can do some amazing work, what's really important is the work. If you're going to come out of something with some incredible work that you're proud of, and it's going to be attached to another company, I think that's really key as well. But I just think it's probably a bad habit to get into, and just question when people come at you and say, "Will you do it for free?" I just the question alarm bells would be ringing. You know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good thing to have the alarm. Then you can go and check if there is
Exactly.
actually a
Yeah.
thief in the house, but just
Yeah.
having it, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So fantastic. So let's go back to the story once again. Um,
Mm.
do you because it's interesting because your kind of progression has been very consistent by doing the same kind of things. Is that right? You're doing the same things now that you've been doing in the
Well, I mean,
beginning.
no, I mean, I guess I'm doing other. I mean, no, I mean, yes and no. Like, I've been doing other things. Like, over this winter, I was making a music video with a friend of mine, and I've been working on a book with another friend in America, and we're trying to develop a book. There's been other things that have been happening. It's not just been editorial, and even within editorial, like I've started working for a Danish newspaper doing like some of their covers and things. So stuff it has grown and developed, but I guess yeah.
Yeah, no, I meant in regards to your outreach efforts in a way, the way you make
Oh right.
things happen. Is that still the same? You just make a list of all the people you'd like to work with.
Yeah,
You just
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
that
yeah,
has
I'd say so. Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways, isn't there, of especially in this like age of social media. There's so many ways of reaching people. But for me, it's been like that. I mean, I think more recently, like I did have a job with a band quite recently, and it was just quite freakish. It was like it was a band that my friend showed me, and I love this band. They're so good, and I just followed them, and then they randomly saw what I was doing, and were like, they commissioned me to do a single cover, and it was like I wasn't fishing for that at all. You know what I mean? It was just a real bit of good fortune. So everyone's going to have their own strategy, but yeah, I've just got like an image in my mind of how it works for me, and I sort of stick to that.
Yeah, and that's so important to understand what works for you, and then until it
Yeah,
works, you just do it.
yeah. I mean, I am conscious of like, I think everyone has to like, you have to accept that the world is like constantly changing, and these things like social media, like who knows what the next thing is going to be. And I do have a tendency to kind of become quite like rigid about like, this is how I work. I do this. I wake up at this time, or I'm doing this thing, and repetition. I go over and over, and I'm kind of conscious of things are. I'm gonna get like a slap in the face at some point. I'm gonna have to change at some point. So I want to be open to that change when it arrives. But yeah, so far I'm like, my girlfriend always takes the piss out of me, saying like I'm like a robot. I just like keep going forward. But
Till
like
it's
it's a
working.
fair. Well,
Why not?
yeah, like you say, like if it works for you and right now, then there's no
But
need to
also,
change it.
I feel like this is why one of the reasons why it's important to understand why the things you do are working, so that you can kind of predict when those kind of things will not work anymore. So just being able to see the industry, definitely,
Yeah, yeah,
where things are going, and trying to understand, is this thing that I do still viable or valuable? um
yeah,
but that definitely takes a lot of um just trying to actively understand what is happening, and um, different concepts. So it's not for everybody, and
yeah,
so for most people, this is what is going to happen. They're going to do something until they get slapped in the face, and they
yeah,
say, "Okay, I need to change something," which is
yeah,
good. Why not?
yeah.
Um, but okay, going back, we've slightly touched on the topic of social media. What's your take on that?
Hmm. Uh, I try and you know what, like obviously at the beginning as a freelancer, like I wanted to build like a social media following. I was kind of really conscious of that. It was like I'll make sure I keep posting. I think to be honest as well, I really wanted to prove to people that I knew that like that I was doing illustration. It was like I've done this commission, I've done that commission, and but actually as time's gone on, I've started to realize how bad social media is for like creativity. It's either for me personally, speaking personally, I think it's so bad. It like drains your soul, kind of thing. Like I find if there's been times in my like recent call it career, like that I've been making things and then almost making them with Instagram or something in mind, and it's just completely the wrong uh, way of approaching
Just
social
thinking,
media for
what
me,
will people
because I
like?
was sort of wanting to build a following. It was all like, okay, I've got to come up with new stuff to put on there. And over the last like couple of years, I've completely changed. It's just basically I've sort of stopped trying to build a following, and instead I've just focused in on like, which is what I should have been doing all along, which is just like is the work that I put out there into the public, is it really good, and like do I love it, and like if I love it and it's really good, then I put it out there. But if I don't think it's up to it, then I don't just put stuff out on, like online or around the place just for the sake of getting likes, because I no longer believe in that. I think it's just not good for me. It doesn't make me feel good. Um,
Yeah,
and
completely
I
agree with
guess
that.
I've sort of given up with caring too much about the response I'm getting online. Obviously it's hard because as a freelancer and in freelance illustration, like social media is such a big thing, and you need to like have a presence. I think it's important to have a presence. Um, but yeah, just for me personally, I've in more recent years I've tried to keep it at arm's length because I just find it bad for me mentally, basically, and creatively, it's not helpful.
What kind of a following do you have right now? Do you know?
A following, what in terms of numbers?
Yes.
I've got like 3,000 Instagram followers or something.
Did Instagram ever brought bring work to you? Or
Rarely, but you know that
uh,
like that the anecdote I just mentioned before about the band. Like I mean, Instagram and these social media platforms, if you're willing to put the effort in, and they're amazing, like landscapes for making money and like finding work. If you want to do that, I guess for me, I like keeping it away from me as much as I can, because I just want to spend as much time in the real world as I can. But I do think there's loads of people out there that were much more clever than me on social media, and I think if you're willing to be really clever and navigate it, there's loads of work out there for you through social media. Yeah.
mhm. Um, in one of the interviews that you've done previously, I feel like you said you sketch something every day. Is that right?
Uh, yeah, like in my sketchbook. Is it talking about my
Hmm.
sketchbooks?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like drawing and illustration. It just should be treated the same as playing an instrument or anything that you want to do. You have to practice, and if
Yeah.
you're not gonna, yeah, go on. Sorry.
And so what do you do with that? Do you publish your sketches, or is that a private kind of
No,
thing?
that's actually that's a really good point, because I've got a sketchbook. I've always kept personal sketchbooks since yeah, for the last like 10 years, sort of thing. As more as a visual journey of my life, so I can go back to like 10 years ago and look at, well, kind of where my mind was at and what I was drawing. I find it like a really nice, quite a therapeutic thing to do. Um, but I don't share it with anyone, and I don't post about it because I don't want to sell it. I don't want to give it away. It's a weird thing that, like, because there's loads of drawings that I've done which I think are, people could appreciate this, or it's fun, or it's good. But I just feel like when I start putting it out there for people to respond to it, gives gives it away too much. I want it for myself. Um, so yeah, but that's a good point. There's some things that are personal, and there's other things that should go out there for people to see. Yeah.
Yeah, because a strategy that you can choose, and that some people have chosen, is you know posting every day. Sometimes, like people crap,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, which has been posting one piece of art every day for God knows how many years,
Yeah.
um, and that can be very effective as well. I wouldn't
Mm.
necessarily recommend it as the main strategy, but if you just do it for the sake of doing it, it can bring
Yeah.
very good thing towards your
Yeah,
work.
and I think it does, Tom. Like, I think if you're willing to put the effort in that, like you're saying, and you're a freelancer and you want to build your, I don't think like I think the person doing that is going to get much further on social media than someone doing like what I'm saying. But I guess I'm saying what I'm saying for me is because I want to protect my own like
Yeah,
creativity and my mindset, because I noticed that when I got caught in that loop of just constantly posting stuff, I started, it was like draining my like, it was, I was like looking at everything the wrong way. Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh, would this go down well online? It's just like, that is not why I started drawing. Like, I started drawing because I wanted to like feel good about myself, and so, all these other things that weren't about. I just feel like Instagram massively narrowed the perspective for me of what creativity was, and I just needed to get away from that a bit. But
yeah,
also in this conversation, like, and like you've alluded to, Tom, is respecting that it's a real tool that you can really harness if you want to,
choose to do that.
if you choose to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I really like your approach because, especially now with how present social media are, um, it's increasingly rare, I'd say, to find somebody who's just focusing on the quality of what they do.
Yeah.
without trying to kind of play the algorithm and try to gain as many followers as possible. It's a trap
Yeah.
that's very easy to fall into.
Yeah.
And so it's really nice when we listen to experiences such as yours, where you've actually managed to, you prove you're the living proof that it's not it's not something you must do. If you
No,
don't
I
want
don't
to
think
do
so.
it, then you're free
Yeah.
to just focus on your work. And
Yeah.
I do believe that it's actually going to lead to kind of a better world, that the alternative of focusing on um, what in fact is being generic and trying to please as many people as
Yeah.
possible.
So
Uh,
important, Tom. Like you've made me think as well. Like as you're saying, it's the important thing is like, okay, I could be posting stuff all the time and getting followers just because they want to see constant stuff, but they're not really into my thing. They're just into me playing this game. They're into me playing the Instagram game. Like I'm posting it and they want that. These people want that. And I've decided to go, no, like I make this stuff which occasionally I'm going to put up. Like I do still post that maybe once a month or something like that, or once every couple of months. Like I am active on it, but it's more about like if you want to follow me and see what I'm doing, it's because you actually like what I'm doing. I can't be bothered to like keep you like pleased as like an audience. It's just like I personally wouldn't go following someone. I know there's all sorts of people following people for different reasons, but I follow illustrators and other people because I just like what they do, and when it comes up, I like seeing it. And those are the kind of people that I want to be interested in me. Do you know what I mean? I don't want someone to follow me just for the game of it all. I just can't be asked with that. So yeah, we'll see. It's an
yeah,
easy trap. It's easy, like even saying this, it's easy to slip back into that. It's always Instagram and that stuff is always pulling you in. It's
yeah,
hard to keep
they
it.
pay very good money in order to
Yeah,
make you feel that way. So
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. So it's a constant battle. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I once again, I really appreciate your approach towards the whole social media situation, and that it's so much into like playing the algorithm, so
yeah,
much into our present, that if you go on YouTube, you can also see people that are saying, commenting, leaving a comment for the algorithm. We're so
yeah,
aware of the importance of
yeah,
things, that how these algorithms are
yeah,
making us.
yeah.
And if you let the quality of what you do is dictated by that, yeah, it's not probably not gonna take you in a very good place for sure.
Well, I guess I kind of look online and I think you can know. I personally feel like I can notice when someone's doing it. It's like someone will just be doing like sketches and sticking it up, and it's sort of like I'm not knocking anyone. It actually is. It's completely personal, but
Hmm.
it's just I just felt for myself that I don't want to be doing that. I want to get better at this rather than just yeah.
Yeah,
But
once
how
again,
about yeah?
taking
Go
the
on, Tom.
time to understand yourself and understand what you want to do, who you're willing to be and who you're not willing to be,
Yeah,
that changes everything. And I appreciate the fact that you keep saying, for me, this is what works for me. Like this is what
yeah,
happened
because
for me.
yeah,
But there are so many different things and ways
absolutely,
that people can have
yeah,
see
because
success, whatever success means to
exactly,
them.
Tom. Yeah, yeah. No, that's exactly it. Because it is. I don't. I resent people when they cast like rules on how things should go, and especially like this freelance like thing. And I think in life in general can be whatever the individual wants to make it. And like, I don't. This has been my experience, but yeah, I feel like it's important to refer to it as for me because there'll be other people out there that are capable of just completely other different things to me, and I don't want to like make someone think that all they can do is that because they could ditch the whole like 30 emails thing and go off on a completely different tangent, which takes them somewhere amazing.
Pigeons, for example, very useful.
Yeah, I might invest in a few pigeons.
But yeah, okay. So, do you have any other bits of your story that you feel like you'd like to share, or?
No, not really. Nothing that particularly comes to mind. Only if you have any other points to be made, really. I don't know.
That's okay.
Like, yeah. I feel like that kind of covers it. I don't know, Tom.
So I'd say we could wrap the episode up, and if there is something else, okay. So the question that I usually ask is, what are your biggest the biggest nuggets, the gold nuggets that we can take from your experience, the things that you feel like who's listening should actually pay attention to, or learn from.
I've got something in my mind, which is a kind of quite a hard thing. But I think there's a real importance is to work out, really ask yourself the questions of like, what is it you really want to do? Like, do you really want to be doing this? Because I think once you find out what it is you really want to do, the rest of it's quite easy. It's just a case of like, can you push down the door or not? And I think psychologically that's easier. I think really trying to knuckle down and ask yourself exactly what it is you're looking for is so important before you start going off there and just firing off all over the place. I think you need to nail that down. And I also just think an important nugget or whatever is just don't feel intimidated about other people out there, like people in the industry. These people, like they're good at what they do, but you should feel good about what you do and approach things as a professional, and don't feel scared about anyone. Like people often everyone wants to feel important, so they have like a little thing at the bottom of their email, they have this certain title, but everyone's a person and they can be approached and they can be talked to, and just don't worry about it. Just approach situations with positivity. That's what I'd say. It's not very like succinct, that one, but
no, but absolutely, two very important things to keep in mind. Okay, so
cool,
before we close, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that? Both for work and advice, if that's something you are open to.
I'm sorry, there's a little fly again. I think sorry, Tom. The best way is just through email. If people find me on Instagram and they have any questions or want to have a chat about illustration, then just reach me through that, or just send me a message on Instagram. I mean, that's the best way of like talking these days for me. That's my catchphrase, isn't it? But I think that's the best way, and I'll be welcome for anyone that wants to chat about it. I'm always open to talking and helping people out, and just discussing illustration and these things is always interesting with outside people.
Okay, perfect. Again, cool, Calum, thank you so much for coming to the show. And I'll talk to you soon.
It's been brilliant, mate. Thanks so much.
All right, it's done. Thanks for watching. Once again, you'll be able to find all of the timestamps and resources in the link in the description down below. And if you're a struggling freelancer, just go and check out my free guide to full-time freelancing. It might help. I think it will. And other than that, the usual stuff. If you liked the video, please leave a like. And if you'd like to hear more stories like these and more advice on making a living doing what you love, just subscribe to the channel because there's more coming. Hit the bell, all that stuff. You know what to do. See ya.